Hello, everybody. It's Chris Haggeseth here once again with a Bird Dogs Forever audio podcast. I have something very special for you today. While we've had an awful lot of interviews with people who are active upland bird hunters, this is the first of our interviews with a truly noted scientific expert on a subject that has a great deal of meaning to those of us who run bird dogs. We're going to be interviewing Dr. Dale Wallis. She's a veterinarian in California, and she has a company called Red Rock Biologics. This company has developed a vaccine for dogs, which when given to them, protects them from the effects of rattlesnake venom. This is a huge deal if you run your dogs where there is the risk of rattlesnake bite. By way of introduction, many of you know that I am a recovering physician. And in my own life, I've treated I counted about 13 cases of snake bite. When I was in the Marines, I was stationed in Cherry Point, North Carolina, and we had all 4 venomous snakes there, all doing their business. Bites from venomous snakes exclude the coral snake. We're talking about the fanged ones. In humans, we grade them 0 to 4. 0 means you got a dry bite. You just see 2 little puncture holes and nothing there, and nothing comes of it. That actually is not too uncommon. Secondly, we get what we call stage 1, where it looks like you got a big red ring around each fang, but the rings don't coalesce. Stage 2, the rings coalesce and you've got up to an inch of real reaction around the fang bites. Stage 3, the extremity is getting swollen. And stage 4 is when people have systemic symptoms and die. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea of the nature of snake bites. And so a dog may get very little envenenation. On the other hand, they might get a lot. Where it's located makes a difference. And of course, it's not uncommon for dogs to be bit on the nose. So with all of that introduction, I would now greet to the Bird Dogs Forever podcast, Dr. Dale Wallis. Dr. Wallis, it's very nice to have you here.
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad to be here.
Okay. I would like you to tell our listeners about the research, the whole subject. I don't even know where to start. So I'm going to let you start because our goal is for people to be educated about this new product and have a real good sense of where and when they might want to use it for their dog.
Okay, that sounds good. How about if I start with where the vaccine started for us? And that was, believe it or not, with a cat that got bitten by a rattlesnake. We had come home from the hospital with my newborn son, and during the 2 days that we were left, I guess a rattlesnake decided our front porch was going to be his new hangout. And we got home, we let the cat out of the house, and we heard a ruckus. Lo and behold, we had a 4-foot rattlesnake underneath our front porch.
Wow.
We didn't realize.
Wow.
Yes, we know it was 4 foot because I held the flashlight at 10 o'clock at night, and my husband used the shovel to take its head off, and we measured it in the morning. We didn't realize at the time that my cat had been bitten. We found her 2 days later, nearly dead. By dint of a whole lot of nursing care, we were able to bring her back, but she never fully recovered. She had been athletic and healthy, and she went overnight into a geriatric state and died 2 years later. And I attribute her death to the damage, the long-lasting damage from rattlesnake venom. Well, that started my partner and I thinking, if we can make a vaccine against tetanus, which is a toxin, it's a poison, why can't we make a vaccine that would work against rattlesnake venom? And so we started working on it, and lo and behold, a year passes. My partner's cat gets bitten by a rattlesnake. Fortunately, that was a witnessed bite. The cat was rushed to the clinic. $1,000 later, the cat came back out and actually did fairly well. I think prompt treatment really helped with that. But there was even more impetus at this point to pursue this vaccine. And within about 4 months after that, we had our first batch ready. It had already been tested in laboratory animals, mice, and we were ready to put it in dogs. So we got the help of a local kennel that raises border collies for both cattle and sheep herding. And they were willing to let us experiment on their dogs, and we were able to show that the dogs that were vaccinated responded by generating antibodies in their blood that were able to neutralize those toxins. That is, we took blood samples from these dogs after vaccination, took them back to the lab, mixed that blood with venom, and then applied it in various series of tests and showed that the venom no longer had activity, could no longer damage cells, could no longer kill animals. So these dogs had mounted an immune response that was capable of neutralizing venom. And from there, a number of additional studies, and we were able to get it licensed.
So the Food and Drug Administration is the supervising authority in terms of developing that. Is that correct?
Actually, Food and Drug is more your side of things because
really?
they regulate human vaccines.
Okay.
On the animal side, it's the United States Department of Agriculture.
So learn a new thing all the time. When I grew up, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and then, I don't know, well, it was a combination of things, and I decided to go into medicine, and I still sometimes wish I were a vet. I think what you're doing is just so remarkable. You know, the average small animal vet has a pretty routine life, but what you're doing here, this is cutting-edge stuff.
This is fun.
Yeah. Now, when you administer the vaccine to the dog, what is the technique? What are the side effects? What problems might happen in giving a dog the vaccine? It's
a subcutaneous injection. That is, it goes under the skin, not in the muscle. If it's deposited in the dead space, we find that there's very little chance of an adverse reaction. Sometimes if you have animals that either wiggle so that the vaccine gets placed in the fat of the skin or that are a little on the obese side, you can have the vaccine actually trapped in the fat, and you'll get what's called a site reaction. And these vary from something the size of an almond to something the size of a golf ball. Mm-hmm. They generally don't bother the dog. They're not painful, and they generally resolve on their own without treatment in about 3 to 4 weeks' time. Owners can speed up healing by putting hot packs on them. Like I said, they don't bother the dogs, but the dogs sure like the attention the owner gives to the hot pack. You know, very rarely they'll go on to actually develop an abscess, and a vet may need to drain that to speed the healing. But by and large, that's the majority of the site reactions.
Now, if you get that site reaction, I'm envisioning that it's a hardened, mass-like thing. I'm trying not to use medical terms. Does that in any way impair the immune response that the dog develops?
Actually, no, it doesn't impair it. It seems that the dogs that respond most strongly actually get a bit of a boost out of it. They get a little bit higher titer from this reaction.
Isn't that interesting? Okay.
It is.
Alrighty, now you mentioned the second cat, and it was a witness bite, and the cat came in, and you said $1,000 later, the cat made it out and was okay. What is the normal, roughly, as much as you can say, average, what's it going to cost a dog owner if his dog is bitten by a rattlesnake and has a significant envenenation? What's it going to cost him to have that dog recover?
Boy, that's a hard question to answer. We have about 29 species of poisonous snakes across the country, and the anti-venom that's out there to treat it is made from the venoms of 4 of the snakes. It covers most of what you might encounter pretty well, but it varies in cost, wholesale cost, between about $300 and $900 a unit, and it can take from 2 to 7 units to treat a dog. Smaller dogs need more units than bigger dogs. So just because you've got a 70-pounder, you might get away with 2 units, but if you've got a 20-pounder, you might need 7 to save it. And that can run into $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 pretty quickly.
So what is the range of cost of these vaccinations for Fred Smith, who has a hunting dog and he lives in Texas and he wants his dog to get immunized? What's roughly going to cost him?
Well, Texas is going to be a little more expensive than North Dakota. And the reason is that Texas, the snakes are active 13 months out of the year. In North Dakota, they're active about 6 months out of the year. Mm-hmm. So the timing of vaccination is timed to the time of year and the length of the year that the snakes are active. Texas dogs probably should get vaccinated 2 doses a month apart when they start, and then every 6 months a single dose. Dogs in North Dakota can get vaccinated 2 doses a month apart, beginning about 60 days before the snakes are going to wake up from hibernation. And then they'll just need 1 booster about 30 days before the snakes wake up in subsequent years. So between, say, 2 and 3 doses a year cost, we have seen quotes anywhere from $25 to $50 a dose. Now, we don't set pricing on that. That's up to the clinics.
I understand.
Yeah, when we've investigated why there's such a spread on that, we found that some clinics will quote just the vaccine cost, but in order to get the vaccine, you have to also do an office call, which is a variable amount. Other clinics will quote you the whole package, the office call, the exam, and the vaccine for $50. Okay. So somewhere between $25 and $50 a dose, and if you need 3 doses a year, it's about, $75 to $150 a year.
Well, just getting down to the hard economics, if you are running the risk of a dog being bitten that's fairly high, it makes a lot of sense from an economic point of view to do this. let alone just the issue of the suffering that the animal goes through.
That's true.
Now, how long has this vaccine been available on the market and being used in the public?
It was first licensed in California in July of 2003.
Okay.
It was first licensed for the rest of the country in November of 2004. So in California, we've had almost 3 years' experience with it in the field, and that doesn't count the year and a half that we had it in dogs before then.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the rest of the country, it's been about 16 months.
Now, here in Colorado where I am, we have some prairie rattlers, and they don't seem to be that potent or that toxic. And I've had a couple of vets who have just done watchful waiting. Is that because the envenenation wasn't very bad, or is it because these rattlers might not have as toxic a venom?
The prairie tends to be a little bit smaller snake.
Yeah.
There's actually 8 subspecies of prairie.
Okay.
And the ones that we have in California actually are a subspecies of the prairie.
Okay.
But depending on where you are, different snakes can have different potencies to their venom. It's really, really variable, both within an individual snake and between snakes of the same species, and then between snakes of different species. If you look at venom itself, it has 25, 30 different proteins in it, most of which are designed to digest their prey. So these are digestive enzymes. They're designed to destroy tissue. When those get injected into an animal, they'll start to work. And depending on which snake you have and how long ago he fed, it'll vary that composition. If it takes 3 weeks to generate the full panoply of venom, and he fed a week ago and then he bites your dog, then what's in his venom is going to be more of the smaller proteins because they regenerate faster, and less of the larger venoms, proteins, because they regenerate slower. So it's really hard to say. Watchful waiting is okay to a point, as long as you've got a good handle on the changes that are happening in the dog. You know, as you pointed out, a lot of bites, up to 25%, are dry bites.
Right.
You sure don't want to treat an animal with anti-venom if he's got a dry bite, because anti-venom carries its own risk.
Now, is the anti-venom, is that a horse-derived that you use in dogs?
There's 2 products on the market. The one that wholesales at about $300 is horse-derived. The one that wholesales for about $900 a unit is sheep-derived. And so depending on what's available in your local human hospital, a lot of times the veterinarians get access to material that's short-dated on the human side. That is, they can't use it in the human hospital, and rather than throw it away, they'll sell it at a discount while it's still got a bit of life left to a veterinarian. So it really is variable as to what's available.
I should mention to our listeners that anti-venom is not without a side effect, because a lot of it is derived from horse serum. And when you give a whopping dose, the mammal, be it a human or a dog, after 2 or 3 weeks mounts almost an immune response to it, which causes them to get sick, serum sickness. And so we don't want to give anti-venom unless it's really required. Dr. Wallis, among bites in humans that are lethal, nearly 90% are from the eastern diamondback. That's a big, meaty snake. It's big around. Its head can be as big as as a fist. The fangs can be up to an inch long, giving you an intermuscular injection of 15 cc's each of venom. I mean, it's a real powerful snake. Do you find that there's a difference in the venom between, say, a western diamondback and an eastern diamondback, and what does that amount to in terms of dogs?
It's a great deal of difference. As you noted, the eastern is a much larger snake than the western in general. It also has different venom component. When we do a separation in the lab on venom, so we can look at which protein is where, we do it on what's called a gel, separating the proteins out by size. And we can find 10 major proteins, that is, things that are there in significant quantity in the western snake, but there's 14 in the eastern snake. And when we look at the antibodies that the dogs mount in response to our vaccine, we get recognition of all 10 of the western diamondback proteins by that antibody. And that's not surprising, because that vaccine is made against that venom. But when we take that same antibody that was generated against the western venom and react it with the eastern snake, we only match up with about 6 of those.
Wow.
So there's 8 that we get no immunity against at all, and that's currently an area of active research. We're hoping to have a new vaccine out in the next year or so against that snake. But it is a problem because it's potent and it's got large volumes.
So we're going to say somebody hunting in Alabama or North Carolina or Florida, this vaccine may in fact not provide the protection that it does in California and Texas.
I can promise it won't provide the protection that it does in California or Texas against the eastern. However, we do have really good coverage against the copperhead.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
How about the water moccasin?
no coverage whatsoever.
Huh. So it's not...
Very, very, very different venom.
I was not that familiar with that fact. Huh. Well, how
The
interesting.
water moccasin primarily eats fish and amphibians and reptiles.
Mm-hmm.
So the kinds of things that need to be in the venom to immobilize those animals is very different than what needs to be there to immobilize birds or mammals, which is what the western diamondback goes after.
Well, Dr. Wallis, I think that this is groundbreaking work. I mean, it's obviously something that I think a lot of our bird hunting public will want to take advantage of, both for the suffering of the dog and also the economics. I also see that the direction you're going to get more species involved. Will this work in cats?
The vaccine does work in cats. Both of the two cats that initiated this process were subsequently vaccinated with the vaccine safely. So you could vaccinate animals, dogs or cats, that have been previously bitten. That doesn't seem to cause any problems for them. And they do mount an excellent immune response in response to the vaccine. So yes, we have put it in cats, we have put it in horses, we have put it in llamas, we have some sheep and goat trials scheduled. And we're thinking that this is going to be a fairly useful vaccine across a broad range of species.
Okay, and when are we going to do humans?
I've already been asked that several times. It takes a little bit more to talk to FDA, particularly when you're talking about trying to vaccinate children.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones that are most in need of this.
Tell us the name of your company again.
This is Red Rock Biologics.
Okay, and you're located where?
In the corporate office in Sacramento. The manufacturing plant is in Woodland, California.
Do you have a telephone number for people to call?
I have a toll-free number,
Okay.
866-897-7625.
Okay.
If people are interested and have questions, I encourage you to check out our website because a lot of our frequently asked questions are posted there.
Okay, and your website is where?
www.redrockbiologics.com.
Okay, and to our listeners, if you missed that, we are putting a link on our website to Red Rock's Biologics. So if you missed this, just go to Bird Dogs Forever. You'll find the link there. We'll make it pretty prominent because this is information I think everybody should have. Dr. Wallis, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time. And
thank you, Chris.
I'm just so impressed with the quality of your research. I blabber. Actually, I've done some human research and stuff, and I know exactly what all goes into it. So thanks a lot, and maybe in a year we might have you back and just find the updates.
That would be great. We sure hope to have an Eastern out by then.
Okay, good enough. Well, we'll plan on talking next year. Thanks a lot, Dr. Wallace.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, to our listeners, hey, how about that? Is that not interesting? I came across this and I said, we've got to have more information, so stay tuned because we're going to do a lot more veterinary stuff. We're going to get into anterior cruciate ligament disease. Notice I said disease and not injury. Some veterinarians are envisioning the problem in dogs with ACL as being a little different from humans, where in humans a single traumatic skiing event seems to tear it. It appears dogs have a slightly different tendency in this direction, and we'll talk to some experts about that and see what the repair success and everything else looks like. So until we meet again, this is Chris Hagaseth thanking you so much for your attention. Hope you learned something. Remember to visit our website. Keep your cards and letters coming, and we'll talk later. Bye-bye.